tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael Ma tovu halecha 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 Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Boker Tov, good morning. It is great to be with you. One of the beginning morning prayers, other than, obviously first is always Modani. When we open our eyes, we need to be awake and grateful, or with gratitude for the blessings and for life. And then whenever we gather, whenever we find our way toward each other, whenever we're praying in a place, in a space, we pray the words Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov. How good are the places, or I usually say, of abundant love. But the literal translation is, how good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. So wherever Jews come together, how good is that place? And so guess what? It shows up in this week's Parsha, in the double portion of Chukat and Balak. How goodly are your tents, to see the good with a generous eye. Easy, not easy in the world we live in. It's kind of sometimes hard. And so one of the most beautiful and surprising moments in the Torah occurs where King Balak hires the prophet Balaam for one purpose and one purpose only, to curse the Israelites. And Balak is afraid. He sees the Israelites as a threat. Now, we know in our people's history, there has been lots of people that have seen us as a threat, and therefore they try to get rid of us, right? We've countless stories, even till right this minute. And so, I don't know what happened. So he summons Balaam, expecting him to pronounce these words. But when Balaam looks over the Israelite camp, he's looking over into it, and something unexpected happens. Instead of curses, blessings emerge. And these are the words: Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly, or how godly, but how goodly, how good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. These words have become part of our liturgy. We sing them every time we're in synagogue, when we're creating sacred space in places that are not a synagogue or sanctuary space or temple or a house of worship. And we wonder, when reading this parsha, what exactly did Balaam see? And so there's an interpretation, the rabbi's interpretation, which is they teach, the words teach, or the interpretation teaches, or the teaching teaches that Balaam noticed that the entrances to the Israelites' tents did not directly face one another. That each family had privacy, had boundaries, had dignity, had people that respected, they were people that respected one another's space. And Balaam was moved by this. He thought about it, that the tents of the Israelites were strategically placed so that there was some separateness, though they were together. So think about that for a moment. The prophet hired to curse the people ends up blessing them because of the way that they treated one another. Not because they were powerful, not because they were wealthy, not because they were perfect, but because they built a community that was grounded in dignity and respect. And perhaps that's the first lesson for us to learn. That holiness is often found, as we know, in the ordinary, in the way we speak to one another, in the way we respect one another, in the way we create space for one another. But there's another lesson also. Balaam expected to see one thing. He expected to see a dangerous, threatening people, but instead he saw beauty. We ask ourselves, how often does that happen in our own lives? Do we see situations? Do we see people? Do we see what we actually see? Or do we approach people with assumptions? How often do we define someone by a single interaction, a disagreement, a label, a first impression? And yet, if we look more carefully, we may discover something entirely different. Compassion where we expected indifference. Strength where we expected weakness. Goodness where we expected something else. And what our tradition calls for is ayin tova, a generous eye. A generous eye. The ability to look at another person and actively see God in that person. God not as the ever-present, perfect one, no. God in the goodness. Not ignoring that there's flaws, not pretending that people are perfect, but choosing not to let the simple imperfections, or maybe they're profound, become the whole story. Being honest with ourselves is saying, damn, that's a hard task. It's often easier to notice what's wrong rather than what's right. Easier to criticize than to appreciate, and easier to see the shortcomings of others instead of simply looking for the strengths. But Balaam teaches us that blessing begins with how we look at the people. Because what we look for, we often find. If we search only faults, guess what? We discover them. If we intentionally seek goodness, we'll often discover that also. And perhaps the greatest challenge is to extend that same generous eye to ourselves. How often are we our harshest critics? How often do we focus on the missing, the broken, the unfinished within ourselves? What might change if we learn to look at ourselves with the same compassion we offer those that we love, there could be strengths that we see. There could be the generous eye that will discover the goodness in one another, but we need to turn that eye toward ourselves before we can even see it in someone else. Things might change simply by changing the way we see things, the way we choose to see things, the way we decide that first, hey, wait a second, let me not judge this person. Let me look for something deeper. Let me look for something different. Let me not only see the broken. Let me not only see what's missing. Let me not only see what's unfinished. Let's be less harsh. Is there someone in your life who might benefit being seen through a more generous lens? And what would it mean to offer yourself that same kindness? Because often we project or we see the faults in others which are really the faults of ourselves, in ourselves, the way we are, the similarities, because we know what it feels like. And so we see it in someone else. Balaam came looking for reasons to curse, but instead he found reasons to bless. That's being a true prophet. So maybe we could cultivate this idea of a generous eye. Maybe learn to seek the goodness in those around us. Maybe create homes where dignity and respect are rooted within the community. And maybe remember that blessing often begins simply by choosing to see one another differently. Beloved friends, we are one human family. We are one heart of abundant love. We see you with a generous eye. We love you. And guess what? I'll see you back here tonight at 6:30, of course. Am Yisrael Chai. Let's continue to live with a generous eye for our people's sake, because we were perceived as something, but seen with a generous eye. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 O Ravinu Chai. Have a great day, everyone. Pre-Shabbat Shalom. Remember, I'll be back here at 6:30 tonight to welcome Shabbat with you. Have a beautiful day.